Oh my gosh. A very, very fun, but very, very exhausting week. Luckily, that week was primarily visiting family and wrestling related, which was a blast, but I was also lucky enough to get some Masonic stuff in there as well. And I do want to talk about that a little bit. Um, I also, today, on today's live, I want to talk about the Grand Lodge of Texas. Primarily some of the stuff that they are doing surrounding the flooding in Texas. Excuse me. And how they are trying to support relief efforts and support Masons who may have been affected by the flooding. Excuse me. I want to mention thank you to everybody for record number of subscribers in in June of 2025, a record number of subscribers to Square and Compass Promotions, which I truly appreciate. But yeah, thank you to everybody for what has been, like I said, it's been an exhausting week. I'll talk a little bit about that, I think, in my weekend. But also, it's been a lot of fun. So I'll talk about why it's been fun. And also, once again, so I think I want to talk about this stream. First of all, the first aid certification. I got my first aid recertified. I think it's very important that all Masons who can get it, get their first aid, but especially Masons in a leadership position. Secretary, treasurer, worshipful master, senior, junior warden, I think should have first aid. Also, I think professional wrestling referee should have first aid, by the way. So I'm covered for both of those. Also talking about the Grand Lodge of Texas and what they are up to in terms of the flooding and how in Texas. Talk about some of the other Masonic things I got to while I was away for the week. And yeah, let's get a bit of time. Let's see who joins. Let's see. Grand Lodge of Texas. Hear it? No. In the meantime, though, jump in the chat, say hello, let me know how you're doing, if there's anything that you want to talk about. Welcome, though. I hope you'll jump in the chat, say hello, let me know how it's going. The first hour we usually spend hanging out. Second hour, we have specific topics we talk about, including, like I was saying, the Grand Lodge of Texas and their efforts and relief efforts. I did. It was very little sleep and a lot of travel, but it was a lot of fun. Yesterday was a great time at wrestling. Saturday was a great time at wrestling, Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling. Got also, luckily enough, I was able to visit the Grand Lodge of Quebec in Montreal. I posted some pictures of that on my Instagram, which was a lot of fun. So yeah, it's been really great though. I got my first aid certification while I was there, which again, I'm happy to have that recertified. So I know if anything ever happens, for example, in a Masonic lodge, I know that I'm all set. But yeah, jump in the chat, say hello, and let me know if there's anything you guys want to talk about when it comes to Freemasonry. Any questions, comments, thoughts? I would love to hear them. Thank you, Kingsley. I hope we are all sending out a quick prayer for them. Like I said, there is some relief efforts from the Masonic service community to those affected by the flooding in Texas. I'm going to talk about what they are, how they work, how the relief efforts work, and how you can support those relief efforts. It is from the Committee on Masonic Service. I'm going to read that post later on. By the way, I am a member of a lodge in Texas, Arlington Lodge, or sorry, um, in Arlington, Texas. So I'm an affiliate member. Obviously, I'm not there in person. Tranquility Lodge 2000, out of. Actually, sorry, it wasn't Arlington. Let me get the exact information right because I'm messing it up. Because sadly, I never get to visit in person. Tranquility Lodge 2000, out of Plantersville, Texas. Pamela, welcome, Pamela. I hope you're doing well. I hope that you will hit the like button and subscribe button. I do not play Fortnite. I'm not very good at video games. I do enjoy Dead Space though quite a bit. It's one of my favorite video games. Dead Space 1, 2, and 3. I love them all. But let's give it a few minutes. Let's wait to see who jumps in the chat to say hello. And again, we're definitely going to talk about Texas. And Pamela, please, if you're not done so yet, take a moment, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. I would very much appreciate it. And we're just going to give it a bit of time. We're going to see who else joins us. Usually it takes about an hour or so for the majority of people to arrive. So let's give it a bit of time. I live in Ontario as well. I live in Windsor, but the beautiful thing about Freemasonry is, even though I live in Ontario, I have friends and brothers all around the world. So, which means also I need to make sure I care about my friends and brothers all around the world by trying to support them if they are in trouble, whether it be the floods or any other natural disasters. It was beautiful. If you go to my Instagram, you can see the pictures I took of it. It was, like I said, very, very impressive. For anybody who's interested in Masonic buildings in general, I have three Instagram accounts. One is my general account where I post just all my kind of general posts about Freemasonry as well as what's happening in my life. But then I have a Masonic buildings Instagram, which is I post the facades of our buildings, Masonic buildings around the world. And then I have another Instagram page where it's Masonic interiors, where I post the interiors of our Masonic buildings. And those are really special and really fun as well. Dennis, welcome. How's it going? I hope you're doing well. I'm asking the question about first aid certification because I think everybody should have their first aid, to be honest, but especially because this is a Masonic chat, I think Freemasons should have their first aid, especially worshipful masters, and also professional wrestling referees should have their first aid. So I have it. Mike Hooper said hi. Hello, Mike. My day is going well. I'm still recovering from an exhausting week. I'm very tired right now, but I had a blast. I hope that your day is going well, Mike. I hope you'll hit the like button and subscribe button. We're here to chat about Freemasonry. Let me know if you have any thoughts on Freemasonry. I usually start to talk about specific topics kind of an hour in, although we can talk about it earlier. I was first aid CPR certified, but have not recertified. Okay, I mean, I was in the same boat for a long time. I was certified, but I let it lapse, so I'm happy to finally have it recertified because things change, right? And so it's good to get the recertification. Battlefield, like literally in battle, which is, you probably in that case have the best training of anybody. I can only imagine battlefield CPR, battlefield first aid, how challenging that must be. So good for you, though. Again, I think it's wonderful. I think you could argue it's kind of a civic responsibility to have your first aid, but certainly I think for Worshipful Master, it is a Masonic what was I saying? Yeah, things change so quickly. that getting recertified, like even from the time I took my first aid, think I think I had in-person CPR at some point, and then I took some like virtual type of first aid stuff in like 2021 or something. But to have it again, like get tested in person, have somebody watching you do the CPR, all the rest of it, um, yeah, even I learned some new things that I didn't remember from my previous testing. So no worries, Rondo. I assume that's what you meant. Yeah, I was kind of in the same boat. For what it's worth, I mean, I guess I would give my recommendation. I would recommend that if you can get recertified, you do so. Whether you're a Mason or not, I think it's important to have. Oh, sorry, Dennis. Yeah, I thought that you were when you said battlefield tested. I thought you meant that you got your CPR in like basic training of some sort, or actually in battle. I guess maybe what it means is you've had to use it in the field, like use your first aid. So, I mean, I'm definitely hope and pray I never have to use my CPR. It's one of those things I'd rather have and never need to use than the alternative. So if I need to use it, it means someone's in an emergency. But still, um, I do feel more confident even going to a Masonic lodge or a Masonic meeting knowing that I have it. And if necessary and somebody does get hurt, I will at least in theory know what to do. Okay, well, I mean, it sucks that you had to use first aid on your family and friends and strangers, but also it's a good thing you had it and were able to help them. I do also want to talk about Masonic relief efforts in Texas related to the floods. The Masonic Service Organization in Texas is accepting donations and working to help those affected by the floods, both Masons and not. And if you want to support them, I'll leave some links when I get a little bit more, into the stream about how you can support them. I'm just trying to find right now. But I do hope also that you guys got to see some of the things I posted recently online from my travels, including the facade of the Grand Lodge of Quebec, um, which is a beautiful building in Montreal. I didn't get the chance to go inside of it, but the facade itself was absolutely wonderful. So if you get the chance, I hope that you guys will maybe check them out. And maybe tomorrow I'll actually do the stream on my laptop, and that way you get to see it on the stream. Yeah, it was incredible. Um, it was absolutely incredible. She got her first aid training, including CPR, that day. The very next day, or that night, when she was going home, there was a child who actually stopped breathing on their front lawn. The dad was there calling for help, and she actually used her first aid in order to. It was crazy. In order to help the child, and not only did she use her first aid, but she was successful. So she got some training right there. Sorry, just trying to deal with something here on the phone. But it's one of those things. It's like you never know about that. I jumped off a sec. Hopefully, I mean, fingers crossed you never do. But if, like I said, the confidence of knowing you have it is very valuable. And also, again, as a worshipful master of a lodge, you're responsible for the safety of your membership to a certain extent. That means knowing that if something goes wrong in lodge, you know what to do. Somebody has a heart attack, stroke, whatever it is, you know what to do. I think it's very valuable. Hello once again, Mike Cooper. In my experience, paperwork. Well, I mean, I do think, as a rule, dentists, even if you have the experience, it's better to get it formally trained and get the piece of paper. I mean, mine is here, or get the card. It usually is. First, because you never know how things change over time. Let me see if I have the card I got. I kept it somewhere, I know. Yeah, here it is, St. Mark James Training. I got my card there. So it's one of those things where it's just a little bit more confidence that you have it. And again, if you know what to do in a situation and you just run up, and say you're trained, having that card can maybe give people a little more ease and feel like they know, oh, this person knows what they're doing. And honestly, it wasn't that expensive. I took a 2-day course, cost about 130 Canadian, if I recall correctly, which wasn't bad at all for all the information I got and to have the knowledge. And again, Freemasonry, the average age is older. Our membership is at greater risk of stroke, heart attack, all that jazz. So I think it's valuable. In terms of the people on this stream, are you first aid certified? Yes, 57%, no, 43%. I probably should have added another question in there asking, are you first aid certified? And then yes, no, or yes, but expired. So need recertification. Because keeping it up to date is as important, I think, in some ways as having it. But let's give it a bit more time. And let's wait to see who joins us. Today, like I said, we're going to be talking about two things. We're going to be talking about the flooding in Texas and Masonic relief efforts regarding the same, as well as maybe some stuff about first aid, why I think you should have it. Good afternoon. Yeah, all is well, raised eyebrow. I hope all is well with you also. Aside from I'm very tired because it's been a long week, all is well. Oh, I wouldn't doubt it, Dennis. I mean, seizures are terrifying, right? For the person having the seizure, it's very scary, and the people who have to see it, it's very scary as well. Yes, absolutely, Rondo. It does help if you invoke Good Samaritan laws. I mean, I don't know all the different types of the rules in different countries. You want to check on those, right? We do have some shielding here in Canada around Good Samaritan acts. But again, do you have your certification? That's going to matter. I would think so. Introspection is difficult, right? Like, introspection is very, very difficult. So it doesn't surprise me that it was tough, but good for you for getting it done. I think that's awesome, and I hope that you continue to move on with success. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to change this poll question in a second. By the way, I'm probably going to do a 1 a.m. live stream again. All right, we're going to do a new poll question here. Should Masonic Lodge worshipful masters, for those of you who aren't Masons, those are the people in charge of kind of the administration of a lodge, do you think that they should have, or it would be required they have first aid certification before they become worshipful master? So letter of introspection, I mean, raised eyebrow can kind of explain it better than I can probably. It's not an Ontario thing. It's different jurisdictions have different rules, but some jurisdictions ask you to write a letter of introspection talking about yourself before you actually join Freemasonry, instead of going up the degrees. Yes, we do. We do have MAID. The nature of it, I don't know all the ins and outs of it as compared to other countries, because every country kind of who has it will do it differently. But we do have it. Yeah, but again, it's not something I'm too familiar with because we don't have it here. It's interestingly, I did try to have it here, kind of, in my lodge. I asked all of our entered apprentices or people joining to write a letter to themselves that would be stored in our records and given back to them 25 years down the line when they celebrate their 25th anniversary within Freemasonry. They get the letter back. And in the meantime, no one reads it, it stays sealed. It kind of went by the wayside, unfortunately, but I always liked the idea of it quite a bit. I'd like to try to bring it back at some point. Um, Welcome, Jessica. I hope you'll hit the like button and subscribe button. Welcome back, XX. But it is like an entrance letter to my knowledge. So raised eyebrow, right? So it's not a bad idea. I'm very interested to see if maybe it's something worth exploring here in Ontario and something worth bringing in here in Ontario. Um, I mean, I don't believe so. Again, I don't know enough about MAID, but I think when it comes to children, parents need to be informed of all medical decisions surrounding them. Um, so I can't speak too much about it. Same thing. I don't know. I mean, the 25-year letters honestly ended up not helping that much with retention either. So, um, retention is the ultimate challenge. Retention is by far and away the hardest thing. I've said it before. I think when it comes to Freemasonry, we spend far too much time focused on trying to get new members and not enough time trying to get those members we already have to, be engaged and active in the lodge. And how we fix that, I have no idea, but we're working on it. I mean, I've given some suggestions. I think a lot of it surrounds um, kind of taking gamification ideas, game theory, and applying it. Welcome back, Name Gel. I hope that you're doing well. Oh, interesting. So 50-50. 4 votes, or 5 votes, actually, yes is in the lead. Should Worshipful Masters have first aid certification requirement? Yes, 60%, no. So it looks like 3-2. I'm surprised. I thought no would be in the lead. So I was given some prompts, like describe my upbringing, becoming a man, my family history, career goals. Okay, so I think the prompts are probably pretty important. You probably need those in order to write a letter successfully. Like I've told Masons start a Masonic journal, and I gave prompts about the type of things you can start writing about in a Masonic journal in order to kind of get it started and give you some ideas, because it can be intimidating to try to start writing anything. Sometimes the scariest thing can be a blank page, right? Prompt to start a Masonic journal. What are 3 things about Freemasonry that you love and would not ever want to change? What are some things that Freemasonry does not have, on which you are grateful it doesn't have? If you had the chance to adjust things about 3 things about your Masonic Lodge in particular, what would they be? What are the reasons for your choices? What steps can you take to make those adjustments possible? Yeah, no, you're not wrong, Rondo. How do you try to attract new members while not allowing yourself to forget about your older membership, or your current membership, I should say, not necessarily older? And that's a really good question. I don't know that we have necessarily the best answers for it at this point. Because there's the advertising quality to it. Like, how do you advertise to newer members or interested parties, interested people? But also, how do you advertise your Masonic lodges to your members, right? If you joined in 2000 and you haven't been to lodge in, let's say, 20 years, what messaging do you send to them to get them back interested? I am doing well, XX. How are you doing? I hope you're doing well also. I hope you'll hit the like button. Hope everybody watching this, if you're not done so yet, will hit the like button. I'll probably be back on at 1 a.m. this morning. I'm not 100% sure. It just depends on what else is happening in my life at the, and how tired I still am from, a couple days with almost no sleep. Which life of a professional wrestling referee, life in professional wrestling, very little sleep. Well, I mean, so the term is usually solicitation, but I mean, we have a lot of advertising in terms of like, there's the not just a man, a mason, there's Facebook posts, right? What you're doing is you're not advertising. So, for example, I'll use the same thing I always use, the same analogy, which probably some guys are getting annoyed with, but family recipes. So let's say or actually, almost any, even though I don't like to use the comparison too much, for this, I think you can use a business or a corporation. Let's say you are Pepsi and you're advertising Pepsi, right? You're not going to advertise the recipe or the ingredients you use to make your product because that's private, that's secret, right? You're not going to advertise that, but you're going to advertise, how good it tastes. You're going to advertise the Pepsi generation, right? And in doing that, you're advertising the qualities of the product while not going into specifics around anything that needs to be kept secretive, like the ingredients, how you make it, proprietary information. Freemasonry is the same way. You're not advertising the quote unquote secrets or the ritual or things that need to be maintained private, but you are advertising how Freemasonry makes Masons feel, how it benefits the community. Maybe you're advertising your charitable efforts. Maybe you're advertising Masonic journey and how one feels. So you kind of treat it like anything else, or with almost anything that is being advertised. There's probably a quality of it that needs to be maintained as private, while also those things that you can talk about. Like for me, for example, I love talking about my Masonic journey, how it makes me feel, why I think it's important, why I think it's matters, while not going into the details of the ritual. That's good advice for life as well. Hello, Ryan, by the way, welcome. Um, no, I've talked about this before, raised eyebrow. The loneliness epidemic is a real thing. It gets talked up a lot, but it gets talked about a lot for good reason. And how do we advertise to men and say, the loneliness epidemic is real. We don't want you to be lonely. So, here's something that maybe we can look at doing to help you guys out to feel less lonely. Especially, but the problem is a lot of guys are finding the solutions to the male loneliness epidemic online and online spaces through the Andrew Tates of the world, which does concern me a little bit. Because unfortunately, it's very hard for Freemasonry to compete with an online world. Because Freemasonry, there's set times to meet, there's set times, there's a set way to do thing. Online, you can much more customize the experience to your schedule. Whereas in Freemasonry, you kind of has to customize your schedule to the Masonic Lodge, right? Andrew Tate, he lives kind of on my phone. So in theory, I can listen to him anytime I want. With Freemasonry, if the meeting is Thursday at 7:30, the meeting is Thursday at 7:30. And now I'm responsible to get myself there. I can't just say I'll go later in the same way I can say I'll listen to Andrew Tate later. That's a good point. To what extent do we intervene versus to what extent do we commiserate? I am well, Courtney. I am having a great time. By the way, Courtney, Texas, to its credit, the um, Texas Masonic Service Organization is doing a lot of great things to try to help out those affected by the flooding. I'm going to talk about that maybe an hour in or so we'll give it a bit of time. Just talking is a good piece of advice, as always. If you're lonely, talk to somebody. Interesting. Should Lodge Windsor Masters have first aid certification as a requirement? Yes, 71%. No, 29%. I'm really surprised. that the yeses are in the lead. I thought the no's would be much higher. So very cool. And by the way, thank you to everybody for June. I had a record number of subscribers in June, which was incredible. So hopefully we can have another record number of subscribers in July. I don't know if that's true, Dennis. I mean, I don't like him. Don't get me wrong. I think he's a. I mean, he talks so much. Every now and then, you'll find something he says with which I agree. But by and large, I think he's a bad person. I think he gives out bad advice. But I mean, he's got a following for a reason, right? And I do think there's two things. First, he does recognize certain issues that are affecting men and was talking about it early on. He is narcissistic, I think. But he did, to his credit, I think the reason he did it was very, what's the mercenary? He wanted to make money. But he recognized that there was a male loneliness epidemic. And he recognized that was both men not having relationships with other men, like brotherly love, as well as men not getting involved in romantic relationships, being lonely, searching for some type of, intimacy, which is why he started, I think, the webcam business, because he knew he could make a lot of money at it. I don't think he cared about helping men be less lonely, but he knew they'd be willing to pay girls, and then through the girls, him, for kind of this feeling of intimacy. And he was talking about this stuff when other people really weren't, which brought a lot of people his way, and then he found a way to monetize it still. And I think in some ways, as Freemasonry has declined in the public sphere, the male influencers, the manosphere has grown, unfortunately. And so, but the other thing I think, and the other advantage that Andrew Tate has, that people don't talk enough about, and we are really struggling with in Freemasonry, is again the customizational aspect of online content and online communities. So, for example, I talked about this before. Let's say I'm a male. Let's say I'm a man who's lonely, who feels alone, who wants to be part of something. Well, maybe I can go online, find a community, find people to listen to. If they're good at talking, and Andrew Tate is, he can make it seem like he's talking directly to me in some ways, which is one of his tricks. But because it's online, I can customize the experience to my schedule. So again, I can listen to Andrew Tate at 1 in the morning. I can listen to him at 1 p.m. Even if he goes on live, I can just choose to listen to his live stream at a later time. And that customization means you don't have to sacrifice very much to have that relationship. And even though it's one-sided, I do believe for a lot of guys, I've talked to some people about this and seen some studies, they feel like they're in a relationship with Andrew Tate, like he's their friend. Even though he's never seen them or talked to them, it's just all online. He feels like they're a friend, but a friend that you can find whenever you need by going online. Freemasonry is not like that, right? Freemasonry, you can customize it somewhat, but ultimately the meetings have a set schedule. There's the mentoring has a set schedule. There's a way to do it. Like, you do have to sacrifice some of your time for it in a way you don't have to with online influencers. Andrew Tate is a guy who really blew up about a couple years ago. He's a misogynistic kind of D-bag, but he got kind of famous for talking to men and talking about men, and kind of styled himself as a leader of men in the 21st century to retake masculine values and all the rest of it. That was tinged with a lot of stuff that was very unhealthy, but there was a lot of men who were lonely, who were sad, who started to follow him because they were lonely and sad and didn't feel like people were interested in them or had his back. And he got really, really rich off of leveraging that following on social media. Um, yeah, Courtney, good for you. Yes, Rondo, it is a parasocial relationship. And but it goes one way, right? It's like again, Andrew Tate has no idea who his audience is, but they know who he is and they feel like they're in a relationship with him because they listen to him so much. What was the play, Raised Eyebrow? I'm really curious because I've had an idea for kind of a play about this topic as well, or at least a even a movie about this. I'm really curious to know what the play was. But yeah, I mean, I saw this online influencer who actually not online, but a YouTuber who she I love what she posted. She posted something to the effect of what did she say? She said, "Men need to stop listening to Andrew Tate and start joining Masonic lodges, and you'll be much happier." And that was from a woman saying that, right? And the fact that she said that, I reposted it. I was like, yes, I agree. Stop stop listening to Andrew Tate and start joining Masonic lodges. You'll be much happier, and the world will be a much better place. So. The play was called Angry Man, or Angry Allen, excuse me, Angry Allen with John Krasinski. Let me look that up quickly. I want to see what I can find about that. Angry Allen, John Krasinski. It was a humorous thing, but also I think it's true, by the way. John Krasinski starring the off-Broadway play where he plays Roger, a man who finds solace and then obsession in the online persona of Angry Allen. The play explores the themes of internet radicalization and the search for validation in the digital world. I'm going to look that up. Thank you for sharing that, Raised Eyebrow. I wonder where I can see it. I really think Freemasonry, to what extent you want to say it's Freemasonry's fault is a whole different kind of tuna, because how could we know? But as Freemasonry has declined in importance and membership, we've left a vacuum which has been filled by really some of the worst people, I think. Probably in the States. Yes, it looks like it. I just found the thing here. And I have also seen, though, on this topic, I have seen men fall, like Masons, Freemasons, and it scares me, but fall into internet radicalization. But then Freemasonry has helped pull them out of it, to its credit, by giving them people who can actually see, talk to them and say like, hey, no, like, I know it seems like this internet thing you're reading is good, but you need to focus on other things. You need to focus on coming to lodge and being with you here. That's what matters. Where is it taking place? For show and venue access information, tickets are $99 to $145, so not cheap. 305 West 43rd Street, New York, New York. Oh. Yes, exactly, Raised Eyebrow. I agree. There is no balance to it there. And again, with Freemasonry, hopefully, you have people there who can, like, catch you, right? Because you can take any message and run with it in a negative message. You can, in a negative direction. You can take Masonic messaging, and if, you know, you're being stupid about it, take it in a bad direction. That's why you need people there to catch you and be like, whoa, you're misunderstanding this, you're not taking this correctly. You know, you need people there to help you understand and not run with it. Again, it's the benefit of face-to-face versus online. Part of face-to-face is accountability in a way you don't get online. Online, you take somebody's teachings you apply them incorrectly, there's no one there to look at you in the eye and say you're doing this wrong, right? There's no accountability as there is in Freemasonry. I would love to see electronic dues cards. I think that would be great. I'd love to just see better dues cards than we have nowadays, to be honest. So many lodges. I mean, Texas is different, but so many lodges, it's still paper dues cards. There's no QR codes. Um, so we're getting online dues payments more and more frequently, but we still don't have um, uh, online dues cards. We have the online dues payments. It really depends on the lodge. Well, I think technology, Dad, is one of those things where what it does is it creates a parasocial relationship. So it makes you feel less lonely, despite the fact that you're actually more lonely. Because you go online and you're talking to somebody, you're watching somebody, you feel like um, you have a relationship with them, even though you don't. And so I think that's a really dangerous thing. And that's again the Freemasonry issue, right? Like, if I'm a Freemason, and so if I was a Freemason in the 50s, in the 40s, and I wanted to know how my brother John is doing, well, I'm probably too busy to go visit him regularly. Who knows where he lives? I may not have a car to get to him regularly, right? I can't just call him up. I can't, maybe I don't have a phone. Phones are very rare. I could send him a letter, but who knows how long that's going to take. So the one chance I may have to keep up to date with what he's doing and how he's doing is to go to the Masonic Lodge to see him there, if he's my brother, right? Now with internet and Facebook, I can know everything that's happening in my brother's life without ever having to set foot in a Masonic Lodge or set foot and talk to him. I can just go online. Oh, his wife had a baby. He got a new job. And I feel like I'm in a relationship with him, even though I've never talked to him in person in years. It's just online. Um, that's not to say, I mean, I do want to be careful that I don't over, like I'm not, I am honestly, even though it sounds like I'm not, I am a fan of technology. I think virtual meetings and virtual stuff has and can be a great tool to help Freemasonry. For example, during the pandemic, our lodges switched to virtual meetings and they were absolutely incredible in terms of what they allowed us to do. I got to, even though I couldn't travel to see him because COVID restrictions, I got to see my dad, every week at these virtual meetings on my computer screen, which is something. It was great to see him. Brothers who traveled, who are living out of the province around the world could come into the meetings. We got to see them for the first time in ages. We got to bring in guest speakers from around the world. Like, there was a lot of value to it. The question is, it's a tool. How are you using the tool? Are you using the tool properly, or are you using the tool improperly? And with technology, it seems like more and more often it's being used as a way to confirm pre-existing biases, to make people feel better without actually doing any work, and to create parasocial relationships in which there's no accountability for behaviors. And I think that's very dangerous. But I do think if it's done right, I mean, like I said, for my dad, during the pandemic, I couldn't see him in person. It was just impossible due to travel restrictions. I could still see him regularly and online, and that was really special. So there's drawbacks and benefits to it, and you need to keep those things in mind. Well, we did here in Canada. I don't believe I ever caught COVID. Who knows? I might still get it now. It still exists. But at the time, there was limited restrictions on travel and all that, and you use technology to make it work. I did, and it was delicious, Ryan. Sorry I missed your question. It was great to see it again. It was great to be back in Ottawa. It was really special. Ottawa is a place, um, you know, I um, I was very lucky to live in Ottawa. when I think about places that have major real estate in my heart, Ottawa is absolutely on the list. I just loved it there, and I got to go back. I got to visit places that I hadn't visited in years, and that were really important parts of my Ottawa experience. And so, um, yeah, I felt very lucky to be back, and actually to be back and see things that I hadn't seen for so long. I will say though, it was a very little sleep and very lot of work. So I remember basically traveling. We had a wrestling show on. So I flew from Winnipeg to Montreal. Uh, so I flew from Winnipeg to Ottawa. Spent the day in Ottawa. Got about 4 hours of sleep. Then took a bus from Ottawa to Montreal. Checked out the Grand Lodge of Quebec in Montreal. Then had Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling that night. Then we finished the show at like 10:30. I helped a little bit with the ring, so we took off at 1 a.m. Drove back from Montreal to Essex, which took about 10 hours because the van was this giant van we're transporting the ring. Got into Essex around 11 a.m. Didn't get any sleep. Refed in like the 40-degree weather, the show in Essex. Helped with the ring again. Got back to my place at like 5 and then collapsed because I was exhausted. But it was pretty special. And I didn't even work the hard. Like, I didn't even work the hardest by any means. There were so many people working crazy hard. Reverse. So it was just incredible. The amount of work and dedication people put into it. Um, which part of Canada do I admire most? And I see. So, Dennis, I'm gotta disagree with you there. I don't believe it was a pandemic. I think it was just a pandemic. I think they happen. Unfortunately, they happen about every 100 years. Last one was the Great Flu epidemic of what, 1912 or something. During the First World War, there was a flu epidemic which killed. Like, you had the war taking people out. On top of that, you had a flu epidemic. Which part of Canada do you admire most and why? Well, I mean, I don't know about admire, like, because I think I would admire all the parts of Canada for different reasons. In terms of the part of Canada that has the closest place to my heart, um, it would be Ottawa, it would be Windsor, and it'd be Winnipeg. But probably, I would have to say, like, if I had to pick, use the word admire, it'd be Ottawa. Just because it's so beautiful, it has such amazing history, the parks are incredible, and it's a really special city. It's, it's really, really special place. If you ever get a chance to visit, I mean, tourism-wise, you can't go wrong seeing how beautiful it is. How do you feel Russell Brand? Not a fan of Russell Brand. I think Russell Brand is bad for the world, to be honest. I think he makes the world a worse place by existence. Not saying he should go away. Free speech, he can go online and he can say whatever he wants, and that's just the way it is, but not a fan of him, that's for sure. Well, I mean, I think the flu was existent. I think the issue was human beings would have a tendency, like if it was very easy for people to get sick and say it's just the flu, it's not COVID, and ignore the symptoms. So you might as well tell people, like not tell people it's this, but tell people like, look, if you have runny nose, coughing, whatever it is, it could be the flu, it could be COVID. Assume it's COVID, so you don't spread it. I mean, that would have been my advice as if I'm not a doctor, I have no, other than first aid, no medical training, but to me, the messaging I always got was, look, your symptoms could be any number of things. Yes, it could be allergies, it could be a flu, it could be a common cold, it could be who knows what it could be. But to be safe, treat it like it's COVID and isolate so as not to spread it to other people, which seems sensible to me. And treat everything, it's kind of like treat every gun as though it's loaded. treat every runny nose during that time as though it's COVID, and you could argue whether that's too risk averse, and you can argue as to whether the response was correct. I think there was mistakes made during the response to COVID, both by Masonic bodies as well as the medical professions. But I am not willing to buy that it was either coordinated mistakes or that it was maliciously done. I think people were just trying their best to figure out what to do in challenging times. Yes, I mean, whenever I travel, I try when I can to look up gyms that are MMA, Kung Fu, whatever it is, martial arts, wrestling. Um, and so, um, and it was really special. It was very close to where my dad lives, which was great. I could just wheel there. And again, it's a new set of skills. Learning how to work with weapons was really special. And it's a new skill that I don't really have normally, but hopefully I can apply that in my professional wrestling training. So, thank you, Ryan, and I'm proud to know you. So, thank you for being here. I hope that you're doing well. I hope you've had a great, great weekend. Dennis, I mean, I can't speak to the motorcycle thing. I'm happy that however long you were dead, I hope that they brought it back. I'm glad they brought you back from the dead. Um, I mean, I will say I was not a big fan of the fact that it seemed like the number of COVID um, cases a hospital had increased their funding. I get the argument of, if you're allocating resources and money for something like COVID, then you want to allocate it to hospitals that have the most cases. But obviously, that creates dangerous, a pretty dangerous incentive to overestimate the number of COVID cases you have to get more funding. So I was not a huge fan of that. I recognized why it was dangerous. Um, Having said that, you mentioned there was no flu during COVID. According to this that I'm reading, at least in Canada, um, there was, during the COVID pandemic, there was, among influenza B detections, 12,682, 32%, 34%, and so that's 12,000 cases of influenza B. But again, that's just cases that were reported. Who knows how many people got it and just didn't go to the doctor. Um, and that wasn't for every year of the pandemic. That was for 1 year. I just can't find the year that it was. I'm trying to find this info. Well, I think, again, this is where I speak for myself, by the way. I speak exclusively for myself. You know, I understood why they were doing it, but I was concerned as well. So what it looked like to me is they wanted everybody to get vaccinated. Everybody who could get vaccinated to get vaccinated. And for me personally, I'm a huge proponent of getting vaccinated. I think everybody should. I speak for myself. Many people strongly disagree with me on this one. Um, I think every I think getting vaccinated is a Masonic responsibility. We should care about society. We should care about not getting people sick, and I think getting vaccinated is a way to do that. Having said that, I did not think it was the exclusive and only one thing people should do. I think Masons, aside from getting vaccinated, they should be exercising regularly. I think they should try to care for what they eat. I think they should go to their doctors regularly for checkups. I think pick your terms, right? Like they should do everything. It shouldn't just be a single vector. They should get their first aid training. So not only can they recognize when somebody else is in trouble, but they should also, recognize when they're in trouble. So I think it should be everything. I think vaccination matters. I think exercise matters. I think eating healthy matters. I think first aid matters. Doctor's appointments matter. But I think during COVID, the reason they were so focused on vaccination is because they didn't want people saying, well, I don't need to be vaccinated because I eat well or exercise. But I do think what ended up happening is they over message on vaccines, which made it seem to people who care about exercise that exercise wasn't important. When it was, especially because, going back to what we were talking before, like I do believe there was a greater risk of dying from COVID if you were overweight or unhealthy. So, for me as a Mason, I just think it's important that you treat everything in the same. You treat everything as important and not perfect. Nobody's perfect. My biggest weak spot by a mile is diet. I'm not great at diet. I'm trying to be a little bit healthier with what I eat because that's my kind of downfall is I don't eat well as I should. But I'm not saying people have to be perfect, or if you eat a donut, you're a bad Mason. That's stupid. I'm not saying that. What I am saying though is I think people have responsibility, especially if you're a Mason, to try to care for yourself so that you can care for others. Um, and that means again, exercising, diet, vaccines, going to your doctor regularly, taking your medications as prescribed, etc., etc. And again, nobody's perfect, and God knows I'm not. Again, I would say I exercise pretty regularly, and I'm proud of that. I try to listen to my doctor. I never used to, but I'm trying to listen to my doctor. Um, I get my vaccines. I got my first aid, but my weak spot, I think, is the diet. So we're all a little bit hypocritical, It's just our human life. It was just what we are. Do I bake? I do not. I can't. I mean, if you're talking about cooking and baking and stuff, I do not bake. I don't really cook any at all. Um, Amit, you guys, I don't think can see it because the moderators took it out, but Amit Malik had some unkind words to say, so we'll just ignore him. Yeah, we got measles coming back, which sucks. I mean, and Rondo, I do think, again, one of the mistakes that was made in messaging is like the idea that vaccine injury doesn't exist at all, or there's never been any issues with vaccines, or like myocarditis isn't a thing. I mean, that's very silly. Of course, every medication could have potential side effects. It could hurt people. It could harm people, but so could COVID hurt and harm people, right? And like I went into getting my vaccines always under the understanding and impression that this isn't going to be perfect. I could still potentially get COVID even after getting vaccinated because everything is human made. Anything that's human made is not going to be perfect and is going to have mess ups. I kind of went into that with that understanding, and that was okay, by the way. Like, I appreciated that was the case. I appreciated people were doing their best, and I decided that, you know what, I'm willing to take these risks, whatever they may be, even if it's something as simple as a side effect of muscle soreness, which I never had with COVID, to be honest, but I got it with other vaccines. I've got muscle soreness. It's like, I'm willing to take those risks because it's important. I do think that one of the mistakes that was made again with the messaging is people were saying like, this is 100% going to work every time, and there will never be any side effects. And it's like you can't know those things, right? You can't know anything that 100%. You can say there are risks, but here's the trade-offs. And for me, I never believed. I think it was Rachel Maddow. Um, said it, Rachel Maddow on CNBC or something, said something effective like, this vaccine is 100% effective and, 100% safe. And I was like, that's the worst thing you can do, because now anybody who gets vaccinated and gets the disease afterwards, immediately they're going to just assume it's all BS, as opposed to saying there's no guarantees, but it's safer, and it's maybe significantly safer, right? Good morning, Sharma. Thank you for being here. I appreciate it. I mean, Dennis, I definitely don't think every major company is the same as Nazis. Companies have their own incentives. I don't think, I mean, like everything else, right? You want to take everything with a grain of salt. Companies are individuals. I mean, um, it doesn't have to be a corporation. Like, okay, if um, if I have a house and somebody comes to visit me who's a friend and says, by the way, you need a new roof, and I own a roofing company, um, because he has a vested interest, because he owns a roofing company, I'm not, and he's not a corporation. Maybe he's just, he owns his own company, small business, has 3 or 4 employees. I'm going to take what he's saying with a little bit of a grain of salt, because obviously it's in his best interests that I think I need a new roof and will hire him. But at the same time, I'm not going to completely dismiss him either, because it's in his interests. I'm going to definitely, I'm not going to automatically assume he's full of baloney, because his interests coincide with what he's saying. I am going to maybe get a second opinion, double check. But if I get, let's say, 10 opinions and 9 of them say I need a new roof and one of them doesn't, I'm going to go with the 90% that says I need a new roof, right? Whether the interests line up or not. Because I'll always have to find one person who maybe disagrees. The Tuskegee experiments, I would have at the time, which would have been a mistake, because I would have ended up, you know, injected with syphilis, I think it was. And, look, there is always, that is the risk you take, right? Like, was it possible that in 2000, and whenever I got my first COVID vaccine, 2001, I think it was, if I recall correctly, I have my list of how many COVID vaccines and when and all that. Is it possible that it was some type of massive government conspiracy? And as one of my friends told me, because he's got interesting ideas, that the vaccine would have killed me. I mean, anything is possible, I get, but at a certain point, you can't just live your life running on assuming every government is evil and every government agency is evil, because that's how people treat Freemasons, right? When Freemasons do something charitable and for good, people say, well, that's, you're just trying to get good press so you can continue your plans to take over the world. It's like, you gotta sometimes assume and take people at their word that they're trying their best, and not assume malice and the benefit of the doubt that is extended to me, I try to extend to others in positions of authority when I can. Because I don't want people looking at me and the things I do and assuming, they could say I made a mistake. I'm fine with that. But to say, I'm evil, or have malice, that I don't want. So they can say, look, Freemasonry made a mistake here, there, that's fine. I'm not comfortable with assuming malice. And in the same way, I try to extend that same benefit of the doubt to those in positions of authority. Um, no, the skepticism makes sense. It would make sense more so if you're a black person who, because again, it was the Tuskegee experience were done on, if I recall correctly, black military personnel, if I recall correctly. But black people I know for sure. So vaccine skepticism does make sense to me. I just think ultimately, um, there's a point at which, for me personally, the skepticism one may have about any government program has to be weighed against the potential benefits. And also, you know, I try not to. I think one of the dangers of government is not the way people view government, is it's very easy to view government as a monolith, as opposed to what it is as someone who's worked in government for many years, which is actually a bunch of different people very rarely communicating with each other, which is a problem. Each trying to like make their little area of government better. Because one thing with Freemasonry, right? I talk about this a lot. Is one of the biggest conspiracy theories surrounding Freemasonry starts with this idea that there is a single Freemasonry. There is one Freemasonry, a global organization that controls everything around the world. And the danger of that as an idea from from a conspiracy point of view is people, if you find one example of a Freemason breaking the law or acting badly anywhere, because they view Freemasonry as being one monolithic organization, that bad action gets tagged with everybody, every Freemason, as opposed to what I always point out. Freemasonry is jurisdictional. There are different Freemasons in different parts of the world with different rules and regulations and memberships. We can travel and visit, but ultimately, it's jurisdictional. It's different groups, different Masonic organizations with different rules and regulations. In the same way, government's like that. The government that was responsible for the Tuskegee experiments is not the same government that's responsible for vaccines today. It's different people, it's different leadership, it's different people creating the vaccines. And they are not the same as the people who are responsible for food, not the same as people responsible in weather service. Like it's different groups, right? And when you have this attitude of the government screwed up here, so therefore I'm not going to trust any government, that is very dangerous. And it's not a reflection of the way government works, at least in my experience. Yeah, George Carlin was full of baloney. Dennis, once again, I understand he's one of those people who, comedy legend, somebody used to do stand-up comedy. I kind of respect some of his stuff, but they don't all have the same goal. That's the thing, right? They don't all have the same goal. They have very different goals. The goal of Canada is different than the goal of the American government, right? So there is no they. It's a lot of different people with different ideas. Some are bad actors and generally want bad things. Most want good things but disagree on how to get it. I've heard that, but interests don't converge. In my experience, interests almost never converge, or at least what's the term I'm looking for? The perceived interests don't converge. Ultimately, I would say from a human perspective, interests converge. Like, whoever's on this stream with me, wherever you are in the world, I have a certain level of interest in your health and your well-being because you're another human being, and it makes no sense for me to wish ill upon you from one human to another, right? Because what benefit would it possibly be to me if you're ill, if you're sick? You're part of the tribe that is humanity. I want that to be as healthy as possible. So from human to human, interests converge. However, when it comes to governments, when it comes to agencies, interests rarely converge, right? It is not in Pepsi's interest that Coke sell more products, right? It's not in Canada's interest for America to put up tariffs. It's, interests rarely converge on the national, international government or corporation stage. One thing I think about Freemasonry, which is something I love about it, is I think to some extent what it can do is remind people that there are human interests. There's like Mason in Canada, Mason in the States, Masons in wherever it is. We're all people and we should care about each other as brothers. It reminds us that at the individual level, the human level, there are interests of brotherhood, interests of respect for one another that should trump kind of borders and should trump, no pun intended, but should trump monetary interests, right? Wherever you are in the world, wherever you're watching this from, what Freemasonry reminds me of, one of the things it reminds me of is you are my brother. And even though we may have different national interests, even though we may have different monetary interests, on a human level, to some extent, your interests are my interests, and I should care about that, in my humble opinion. No worry about the typo, Rhonda. It happens all the time. Yes, Courtney, you can request vaccination during primary care appointments. I've done that in the past. Usually I'll get my vaccines through Shoppers Drug Mart. And thank you, Shoppers, for being awesome. Um, Thank you. I don't know if I'm the king, but I do try my best to make the world a better place, I guess, which is what we all try to do. Interesting. Should Masonic worshipful masters have first aid certifications as a requirement? Yes, 58%. No, 42%. 12 votes. That's really interesting because I was honestly expecting the no's to be in the lead. So that's really interesting to see that yes is actually higher than no. Really cool. Um, I hope if you're just joining me, you'll hit the like button and the subscribe button. One thing I did want to talk about, I'm going to talk about it now just to deal with this, is the Texas relief efforts, Texas Masonic relief efforts as it relates to the flooding currently taking place. Oops, I just lost that. In Texas. Right? Freemasons often will contribute to disaster relief efforts around the world, both within their jurisdiction and without. And we are once again at that stage here, where there is, unfortunately and incredibly sadly, there is the flooding taking place in Texas. I believe there's even a risk that there may be more flooding in Texas than there is at the moment. Some new rains coming. As of right now, death toll from flooding is at 90, including 27 from Camp Mystic. So we have 90 dead confirmed, 27 from a camp for girls. I don't know how many people they have that are still missing, that they don't know if they're dead or not. I mean, yeah, as Dad brings up, in Manitoba, we had lodges supporting the forest fire relief efforts. Rescuers are still searching for dozens of missing people, so that death toll may only go up. So what is Texas Masonic Charities Foundation doing to support relief efforts? I'm going to read this post from Facebook. What is the... the lion heart? Do you mean the lion's paw? I'm trying to think what that ritual is. All right. I agree. Unfortunately, whenever there is a disaster of any sort, but especially my suspicion is one here where it's close to the border, there's going to be bad actors taking advantage of it, which really sucks. You see that often, though. Please help us funnel all questions and inquiries with the ongoing relief efforts to your service committee. Many prominent brothers have had their phones, emails, and social media channels overflow with requests they don't have to forward to us. For inquiries about assisting the relief efforts coordinated by the Committee on Masonic Service, please contact us at service@grandlodgeoftexas.org. I'm going to put that in the chat. Again, if you're a non-Mason, you can still contact this, or if you're a part of a Masonic Lodge from, actually, I'm going to do that one more time, from outside of Texas and you still want to help, that's how you do so. Service@grandlodgeoftexas.org. For monetary donations, our Grand Master Rayborn L. Reader encourages all who are able to contribute to the ongoing relief efforts to do so, no matter how small the contribution. To support relief efforts, monetary donations can be made to Texas Masonic Charities Foundation online. At www.txmcf.org. Checks may be mailed to, actually I'm going to put both of these in here. That's where you can mail checks or send donations. txmcf.org. Checks may be mailed to Texas Masonic Charities Foundation, P.O. Box 2156, Waco, Texas 76703. Medical care. There are Masons who help with prescription costs. I agree. I'd love to see that, Ryan. I think that would be awesome to see. Again, your Committee on Masonic Service members wish to thank our Grand Master, our Grand Lodge Trustee, the board members of the Texas Charities Foundation, and every brother that is praying and seeking to contribute time, effort, and or resources to assist those brothers and their families and lodges affected by this tragic natural disaster. And then you can donate also through PayPal at Texas Masonic Charities Foundation. If you go to that link, there's a PayPal. I would love to see a global day celebrating Freemasonry. I think that would be wonderful. I think it's a shame we don't have more of those type of days. Individuals, places do. There are days that recognize Masons, or even days that recognize Masonic leaders, but no days that recognize Freemasonry around the world. The UN would have to be the one to create it. Actually, let me double check that. Maybe I'm wrong. UN Global Day of Freemasonry. Freemasons observe February 22nd as International Day of Freemasonry in many parts of the world, commemorating the birth of George Washington, a prominent Freemason and first U.S. president. That was from Instagram post in 2023, but I don't think it's official. Well, because Freemasonry is around the world, right? So almost anywhere in the world, Freemasonry will be doing things to support relief efforts, support charitable, work. So in Texas, they help people and collect donations to support those affected by the flooding. In Manitoba, Canada, they collected donations. Their local Masonic Lodge connected donations to help people out of forest fires. The trick would be making sure people understand that even though it's a global day to support Freemasonry, Freemasonry is not a global organization. Rather, it's jurisdictional. So, it's kind of like the same way you'd have a day of healthcare, where you have a day to recognize healthcare workers for all they do. That doesn't mean healthcare is one organization. That doesn't mean nursing is a global organization, right? Nursing, you work for your hospital. The rules you follow are going to depend on where you live and which state you live, which province you live. In the same way, it's like you recognize, even though it's a global day to recognize Freemasonry, Freemasonry doesn't have global rules. You're under the jurisdiction of your local lodge type of thing. Well, they say that, but again, I don't think that February 22nd thing is official. At least at no point in my time here in Ontario did I ever get a message of we're celebrating the International Day of Freemasonry. Seems like the Grand Orient of Lebanon kind of invented it. Which, again, good for them for trying something at least. What is going on, Smokey? I hope you're doing well. I hope you're having a great day. Thank you for being here. Hope you hit that like button. What's up, brother, from another one? That's as all Masons are. And by the way, if you're just joining us, please take a moment, hit that like button and subscribe button if you're new to the channel. I'd rather see an International Day of Freemasonry organized by the UN or something. Although, again, danger is that just gives the conspiracy theorists a whole new set of things to run on whenever you involve the UN in anything, or whenever the UN gets involved in anything, which is a pain. Good. I hope that your work goes well. And like I said, I hope that you are doing well. It's great to be back after a very, very fun but very exhausting week of travel. It's nice to be back home. Nice to be back with these schedules. I'm probably going to do a 1 a.m. live stream. I think it just depends on how tired I am. So I'm not going to make any promises. If you've got your notifications set, you'll see if I pop up and if you're awake at that time. But I am definitely still in recovery mode after a couple of really, really fun days, but very little sleep. Very, very little sleep. Actually, that might be. Do I want to post it? Might be an interesting poll question asked because believe Freemasons have a responsibility to get vaccinated. I'd be curious to see what people in the poll think about it. And to see if they would share that. Especially, I wonder what non-Masons would think of even that question. Because a lot of people don't recognize the kind of the civic responsibility Freemasonry tries to instill within its people. Now, again, even though it tries to instill civic responsibility, how people define civic responsibility is kind of its own challenge. Because the way I define civic responsibility is different than the way other people will define civic responsibility, which I think is important to keep in mind. But I do believe one of the ways is to get vaccinated. One other way is to exercise regularly. Another way is to just be healthy. Another way is to vote. Another way is to obey the laws of the country in which you find yourself, etc., etc. Let's give it a bit of time. One more time, I'm just going to mention this because I mentioned it before, but it still is really important. If you want to support Masonic relief efforts as it relates to the flooding in Texas, there is a way to do so. It is through the Texas Masonic Charities Foundation. If you want to inquire as to how to support the Grand Lodge of Texas in those efforts, contact the Charities Foundation at service@grandlodgeoftexas.org. One more time, service@grandlodgeoftexas.org. And then www.txmcf.org. You can mail checks to Texas Masonic Charities Foundation, P.O. Box 2156, Waco, Texas 76703, or www.txmcf.org. What kind of experiences are you looking for when traveling to different places? That's a really good question. As someone who considers himself a professional traveler, I try to balance things out as much as I can. Where how do I put this? I want to both, and I do try really hard, I do want to try to take in at least a couple touristy, kind of famous spots, some well-known spots, as much as I can. But then I also want to try to get somewhat of a local experience. So I do my best to take public transport whenever I'm in a new town, as opposed to relying on taxis or relying on like Uber. I try to use the public transport system, the subway. I try to take in kind of the more local spots that are maybe less known, but locals will swear by. Certainly from a restaurant perspective, I try to do that. If it's a place I've been to a lot, what I try to do is hit up both the my favorite spots. Like if I'm going to, let's say, Glenview, Illinois, which I've been to, it's got to be over 100 times. Like since 2012, assuming at least 5 or 6, up to 10 visits per year. When it's that, I try to both hit up the regular spots, my favorite spots, while also every visit making it a point to try to visit at least one new thing, one new area. I try my best to promote where I'm visiting. Like, I'm not saying I'm super huge or anything, but if I could do an Instagram post about a restaurant I really liked, or a place I really liked, or a town I really liked, maybe what that can do is encourage others to visit. And I think part of being a Mason when you're traveling is not only supporting the local Masonic lodge, but also supporting the local economy where you're visiting. I think that's really important. I think taking time to maybe buy a couple things local, could be souvenirs, whatever it is, to support the local shops. I just think it's when I try to travel, I try to look for things that I find interesting, things I haven't been before, things that are locally relevant, and ways to support. And then also, obviously, where is the Masonic Lodge? Where is the Masonic building? Can I get myself there? Do I have my Masonic documentation necessary to get myself there? I think that stuff is absolutely critical and absolutely key. So, Dennis says something about probation officers. It's interesting. I was a probation officer for a lot of years. I was a probation officer for 5 years, and then I worked in a jail for 5 years. So, no, I try to answer as much as I can, Courtney. But I guess I try to, I would say it's a 70-30. 70% I try to embrace the local culture, take part in local things, take the buses, also save money by taking buses, and just check out the local haunts. And then 30% tourism stuff. And incorporated within all of that is 100% focus on how can I support Freemasons in this area. So, yeah. I'm really curious if I can find a way to go see Angry Alan. It will not be easy. Windsor to Toronto. Well, actually, Windsor to Aldershot. Aldershot to Burlington Go. Burlington Niagara Falls. Basically, I gotta make it to St. Catharines and take the Flix bus. It is in the USA. It's in New York. I'm still traveling to the United States. I know a lot of people aren't in Canada anymore, which I'm still gonna say I love my American brothers, and I still try to support America as much as I can, despite the fact I'm not a huge fan of the government. That doesn't mean I dislike the people. But I wish it was. Maybe it'll go on a traveling tour one day. Maybe I could get John Krasinski to be on the stream to talk about it. Wouldn't that be incredible? But I hope everybody is doing well. I do got to give a shout out also. Check out this awesome, as part of the first aid, which isn't a common thing, so I don't want everybody to think that it happens all the time. Well, Dennis, I would disagree with that one, but I guess to each their own. I personally am not a big fan of Trump. I think he's kind of a jerk, but hey, that doesn't mean you're not welcome on the stream. And also, by the way, again, I speak for myself. I know many Freemasons who actually do support Donald Trump. I am not one of them. But yeah, and Freemasonry is apolitical. So we got Republican, Democrat, left wing, right wing, MAGA, non-MAGA, all kind of in a big stew that is Freemasonry. But I'm not a fan of his by any means. I would not trust him very far. I would not trust him as far as I could throw him, which would not be very far. But check out this awesome first aid kit that I got. It's giant. It's got a lot of good stuff in it. I got this during the training, so it's great to have. Again, it just gives me more confidence that when I'm at a wrestling show, I can bring this with me and know that I can help somebody if they get hurt. And also I can have a first aid kit at the Masonic Lodge for the same reason. I want to know that I can help people who might not be doing well. A lot of Americans agree. A lot of Americans disagree, though, too. I know at least a few Americans who aren't a fan of Donald Trump. So, um, you know, I think democracy is messy, and that's true for Freemasonry as well. Democracy is messy. Not everybody always agrees, and that's the reason to have a democracy is to try to find a peaceful way to resolve differences when it comes to different ideas um, on how to operate things. So I got it for free. So thankfully it didn't cost anything. But I think they're pretty expensive because this was a bigger one with a poop ton of stuff in it. So yeah, I think like, a lot of people agree. A lot of people disagree. I would hope that we can use principles of brotherly love, relief, and truth to try to navigate through some of these difficult times. I mean, there is a first aid kit, by the way, at the Masonic Temple, but it's not the biggest. I think maybe one thing I should look at doing is trying to get a bigger one to store at the Masonic Lodge um, as well. We would create two kits of, who knows? But we do have one at the Masonic Temple in Windsor, but it's not the greatest. I think that's a bunch of hot air. I don't see that. I don't see anything happening there, put it that way. I highly question it. So yeah, I don't think Muslim American Party is coming on. Is going to be much of anything, but who knows? We'll see. Interesting. Should Lodge Masters have first aid certification as a requirement? Yes, 64. No, 36. So I'm still surprised that the yeses are so much higher in the lead than the no's. I thought the no's would be winning. So that's really interesting to me. But they do disagree now, Ryan. You are correct. Um, we'll see what happens, I guess. Um, Not a ton. I left actually. Um, um, what was I saying? I left the scissors and the tweezers in at your place, actually in your toolkit, just because they were both metal and I didn't want to take the risk of bringing them. And because I didn't have them in there, I was able to get my first aid kit through security with no issue, and then bring it on the plane. So it was fine. Didn't cost me any more money. So it didn't have to check bag fees. I agree, Dennis, with that 100%. As someone who's kind of paid attention to lodge safety protocols, one of the issues is so they'll have the fire inspector come along in, let's say, Masonic building and check, okay, are there fire extinguishers? Are they located in the right locations? Are they like not expired but still in working order? So you have that being checked. But no one asks, has anybody been trained on how to use these fire extinguishers? Has anybody been trained on the different types of fire extinguishers? Right? Which is a huge issue. And I wish more people would be trained on that. Same thing with defibrillators. They'll tell you, like, okay, here's where we keep the AEDs, but nobody ever trains on how to use it. Even though most of them nowadays, the prompts are automatic. So once you turn it on, it'll tell you to do the next thing, the next thing, the next thing. Having said that, I did get, as part of my first aid training, get trained on how to use a defibrillator, an AED for both adults and children, where to put the pads, the order of operations, all that stuff. You know what the best way to avoid panic is? Training, certification. So that's why, again, a lot of people will say like they know first aid because they've seen it on television or, whatever it is. It's like, no, that's not how it works. Even something that seems super simple and super obvious in the heat of the moment, if you're not well trained, you're going to panic. And then, so an example would be, um, I once heard about this story where somebody called 911. They were panicking because they were having, it was an emergency, obviously. And how'd it go? The person on the other end asked, oh no, the person on the other end, what's your emergency? We're having a medical issue. The 911 operator asked, okay, how do we get to you? Meaning, like, what's your address? And the person calling said, don't you have cars or don't you have trucks? Because she was just panicking. She was too nervous. So you need to be trained. And if you're trained and know what to do, you're not going to be panicking as much. Most people panic. Your rap name could be CPR. Hey, I know how to do CPR now. I know how to do CPR. I think sternum rub is not that commonly taught. Right? It's for a it's to elicit a pain response, right? I think a lot of people, like, we were taught to kind of either, put pressure on the bottom of the foot to see if there's a response, or to even just grab like the shoulder and kind of not shake, especially not an injury, but kind of just grab there, get close to them, be loud, kind of see if you can assess a response that way. Obviously, there's a big danger of you don't want to be moving a person around depending on the nature of the injury, especially if there's any type of suspicion of a serious neck injury. Let's say they get hit by a car and it looks like their neck is turned in a bad way. Don't be moving stuff around, right? Assess if they're conscious, assess if they can hear you talking, assess if they're breathing, but be very careful for obvious reasons. And then you just use your common sense, right? Like if somebody got hit by a car, their neck looks like it's in a really bad position, but there's another car coming towards them that's not stopping. In that case, you may have to move them in order to get them out of the way of that car, even though doing so could exacerbate the neck injury because you have another car barreling towards you. So it's common sense, but obviously get yourself trained, get yourself first aid trained. That's the key, but it's really tough. From what I understand, the sternum technique could be for an ODA. Basically, any-time somebody is unresponsive and you want to see if they have any type of consciousness or any type of response, you use a sternum rub to test. So if they are overdosing from drugs, for example, you give them some sternum pressure to see, are they still able to respond to pain? Are they conscious in any sense, right? But for me, it's like, are they responding to any type of, if I'm gently touching the shoulder, if I'm calling their name, are they not responding to verbal stimuli? If they're not, I'm going to check for breathing. Listen, I may look in the mouth to see if something is blocking the breathing that can be removed. If they're not doing any of that, then I'm going to start CPR. I think everybody working in a jail should know CPR, period, and first aid. Thank you, Courtney. But it's often useful when someone loses consciousness or they're overdosing. But right, it indicates a little consciousness, even if they have, like I said, if the matter they're overdosing. But for me, if they're not responding to my verbal, like, are you okay? If they're not responding to any type of touch, and they're not breathing, then I'm going to go right to CPR. But the biggest thing is, the best thing is, I would suggest everybody get yourself first aid trained. Interestingly enough, 67% of people watching this, 67% of the people who took part in the poll question of the 15 votes think first aid should be a requirement. So it's interesting. We are at, by the way, 1 hour, 40 minutes in. I hope everybody heard me giving the advice as to how to support Texas and those who may be struggling from the Texas floods. If you didn't hear, I left the links up above. But one more time, the best thing you can do is contact service@groundlodgetexas.org. Send monetary donations by check to Texas Masonic Charities Foundation, P.O. Box 2156, Waco, Texas 76703. Or go online, txmcf.org. The safer you can be, the better. I mean, I don't know what type of rules and regulations there should be surrounding local governments saying like which people need to have CPR, but I would say the more people have first aid, probably the better it is, right? Seems to make sense to me. Goodbye, Dad. Thank you for joining. I'm going to be leaving this stream as well pretty soon. I will be back, I think, tonight at 1 a.m. Not positive. But if I'm not, you'll find me again with my social media, and tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern. So. I will remember both of you, I promise, Dennis. Let's give it another couple minutes. By the way, please take a moment, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. If you're new, don't forget to follow me on social media. That's where, especially when I'm traveling and can't do these live streams, social media is the best way to proceed. And keep in touch with me and message me and all that jazz. But let's give it a 2 more minutes. Then let's hit, we'll maybe end this stream, but I will be back, I think, tonight at 1 a.m., if not tomorrow 1 p.m. for certain. Just see if anybody else has any questions they want to ask. But I'm happy I was able to share the information on how you can support Texas Masons or Texas Masonic relief efforts as it relates to the flood. Right now, 90 confirmed dead, so and still dozens more missing. So that number is almost certainly just going to go up. All right, guys, I think we will call this stream. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Truly appreciated it. I will be back again, if not tonight, then tomorrow 1 p.m. Just make sure you hit the notification bell so you know I'm going to be there. All right, thank you, guys. Talk to you later.